the whole Will Smith thing, that was through a friend. I helped her hip and she knew the Smiths.
If I want to become like, say, a certified stretch therapist, what are some like things I should look out for?
How did I get Kyle Lowry? Okay, so when I stretched Drake, hi, my name is Sarah Mariano, and I'm known as the celebrity stretch therapist. But really, I'm just a 5'2" Filipino Canadian from Toronto, Canada, who just uses the world as her playground and travels and gets to stretch people because she believes in movement and mobility.
Can you tell me a little more about just kind of like your upbringing and kind of like how you got really into, stretch therapy, what you were doing before that?
So my parents are both from the Philippines, but they actually moved here when they were like 20, 21, and they met in Toronto, which is kind of a cool story. And then they had 4 of us. I'm the youngest of 4, and we're all very close in age. But for some reason, I had like an athletic aptitude, and so movement was what brought me joy. I loved running around. I was a sprinter. I was doing, relays, 100, 200s, long jump. I played volleyball, basketball. I grew up eventually snowboarding, skiing, everything. Mm-hmm. And because I loved movement so much, and I was just naturally flexible, which is also strange because no one else in my family is very flexible. Right. We're all pretty strong, but I had the strength and flexibility. And so I wanted to share that somehow. And I knew I wanted to be a personal trainer. Okay, so let me wrap it up. Right. Basically, I always wanted to work with professional athletes because I myself was an athlete. I just didn't know how. And I also was like, okay, well, maybe being a personal trainer will get me there.
Right.
I graduated from university with a specialist in English and a minor in human bio, and became a trainer. And then after that, I was opened up to a world of movement and education. I learned more about things like stretch therapy. Mm-hmm. And eventually I decided to really, really utilize that to get me to my goal of working with professional athletes. Right. And so I'm sitting here today before you being able to say I can.
And how old were you when you first got into like your first year into stretch therapy?
That's a good question. How old was I? I think I must have been like 27. 27 when I got certified in stretch therapy.
And before that, you were just a personal trainer. And so at 27, when you first got certified, how was that first year of being, a certified stretch therapist, right? You always said you wanted to, work with athletes, pro athletes. Mm-hmm. In that first year, were you working with a lot of pro athletes, or was a lot of it grinding and trying to like make a name for yourself, building your own kind of brand so that you can attract those pro athletes? How did that?
That was a good question. Initially, I started targeting local amateur athletes. Mm-hmm. So the first stop was CrossFit. I was huge into CrossFit myself at the time. So I would just go to local CrossFit gyms and offer free stretches to whoever I could. I would go to local CrossFit competitions and offer them some free stretches. And then I got connected to some of the Team Canada sprinters. So still some more amateur athletes. And then eventually they connect, I don't remember how, but I got connected to the CFL, the Canadian Football League. So they were my first professional athletes in my first year.
Wow.
When you were stretching players in the CFL, did you think that it's a matter of time? It's just like an ascending ladder. Like, am I going to work with like bigger and bigger athletes? Or were you just like, I did it. Like I made it. I'm working with like professional athletes.
No, I you know what? I don't know. I didn't think, like I'm on the trajectory. Here we go. I was just grateful that I even got to work with professional athletes, but I didn't think like that was my ceiling. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, that's cool. I got CFL professional athletes in my first year. What more can I do? How else can I get more? And after the CFL, that's when I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to switch my business to just stretch therapy.
Right.
And this is when Instagram was like the hot ticket. And I was like, let me learn how to utilize this platform to showcase my portfolio, my credibility. And so I would just offer free stretches to whoever I could, film it, ask them if it's cool if I posted it. I did that with the CFL guys. I was like, hey, guys, if I give you free stretches, can I post it online?
Right.
And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Right. It's always the free stuff.
Yeah. So then you were stretching people in the CFL for free and you were filming it. And how did that affect like what happened in the future with more people reaching out?
That's a good question. I think it gave me credibility in that industry because then one CFL player told another CFL player, and that was great. But I think the videos of me stretching bigger guys who were, obviously athletes helped build my credibility because it's not like they reposted for me or posted for themselves. I think it was just me building my portfolio. That was my first order of business. Like, let me build my portfolio showcasing that I can stretch these big guys so that people would be like, oh, okay, this small person can actually do these really cool stretches. That was just, I think, my original line of thought.
Is there an element of like, I literally didn't even think about this until just now, but you said you're 5'2", and some of the football players are like literally like
Gigantic.
6 foot. Like you mentioned like later Serge Ibaka. Like, how do you even like, you know what I mean? Like their limbs are so long.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by like a small person like with some of these bigger guys, or do you mean like the status of the bigger guys?
Oh, the size and the weight. Some of them are like 250, almost 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I think Shaq at one point said that when he was in his prime, there was at one point where he almost weighed like 400 pounds.
Good Lord. Okay, I've
like,
never
I don't even know
stretched someone that heavy. But with the football players who are, maybe 6'1", 6'2" to 6'5", I can stretch them no problem. I'm just sweating because it's like a workout. It's like I'm deadlifting, 250 pounds. But with the NBA players, the football players like Serge Ibaka, what is he, like 6'11"?
Probably like, yeah.
He's tall.
6'11".
I'd say like
Right.
6'9", 6'10", or 6'11".
I think he's like
that.
yeah. So his limbs are really long. So luckily I'm flexible. So I can maneuver my body in ways that can allow me to do so. But I'm like really lengthening and stretched out. So I'm sweating. Like I'm holding the strings, holding this, like look at this. I have to hold this, be flexible, and then move my body. It's kind of like a dance.
Right.
But it was pretty cool. But I am definitely sweating by the end of the session.
And like, would you say that when you were working with those CFL guys, right, after working with them for a while, was that the moment where the gates kind of like opened to other pro athletes?
Honestly, I think it was posting my stuff on Instagram and Facebook at the time. So I caught my biggest first catch that I was like, wow, I can believe it. Yeah, the CFLs was great, but I didn't really know them.
Right.
But someone as a personal trainer, and when you're learning to be a trainer in Toronto, you learn about local trainers who've made it big.
Right.
And there's this one trainer named Harley Pasternak. He was from Toronto, and then he went to LA and built this huge personal training business. So he's trained Kanye, Kim Kardashian, Catwoman for that movie. Oh, what's her name? Halle Berry. Yeah.
Wow. He's from Toronto?
Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he reached out to me, and he on Facebook of all places, and he's like, hey, like I've been watching your stuff. Like I'm in Toronto. I would love to give this a try. And that was a huge thing for me because as a trainer, we've all talked about Harley Pasternak. Look at the empire he's built. And so I stretched him, and he loved it and helped his back because he used to be a hockey player. And he was like, that was so great. Then he started sent me his wife. He sent me some film producers, like Hollywood film producers, and some pop stars.
Right.
But it wasn't just that. It was because I was posting things, I would hear from him, and then I would get a message from, oh my God, who was it? It was the athletic trainer for the Cavaliers. And he's like, oh, we're coming to play, the Raps. I would love to get stretch while I'm there. And I didn't get to stretch any of the calves, but it was cool to have that connection. And then I guess with the whole Will Smith thing, that was through a friend. I helped her hip, and she knew the Smiths her family had been working with them for so long, and then they were like, they wanted to give it a try.
Right.
So it kind of just all came from all over. It wasn't connected.
Right.
And then how did I get Kyle Lowry? Kyle Lowry just saw my stuff on Instagram and DM'd me.
Wow.
With Serge Ibaka, we messaged him. We were like, me and my team were like, hey, like, this is what I do. I would love to stretch you. Would you want to give it a try? And he said yes, you know?
So
How do you? Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, so all these clientele that you were getting, all these kind of, I guess, quote unquote famous, celebrities or athletes, they all came from just organic content that you were posting on your Instagram. And
Yeah.
with that being said, why don't you think other people who are doing stretch therapists are, posting on their Instagram, right? What kind of set you apart? Were other people just posting that as well, or?
You know what? I can't speak for anybody else. All I can speak is from my experience. And I was very diligent about creating content and then finding or posting information that I thought would be helpful. So I would do some stretches and I would edit it, and then I would have information about, like, here is this like anatomical part. Why is it important? How can it affect your lower back? So for me, providing free information was my ticket. And luckily at the time, you just had a lot of exposure in Instagram.
Right.
But I was constantly posting. I was like trying to post every single day. And then I would reach out to other influencers in the same space who were doing so well. And I was just like trying to pick their brains.
How would somebody even go about, say, for example, you're working with Kyle Lowry, like, how did you reach out to Serge Ibaka? Like, do those people like Serge Ibaka have people that answer on their behalf?
You know what I've found? A lot of the celebrities I've spoke to or connected with, they manage it themselves. So often you don't get a response. You'll like rarely get a response. So me and my team, we were reaching out to as many people as possible, and maybe like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 would actually respond. And Serge was one of them. Like, we reached out to a lot of people like I really wanted to work with. And, then Serge was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And he's like, I'd give it a try.
Right.
So that was really cool. And then just being diligent about being seen, posting, reaching out, and building connections. So that's what was my strategy. I'm not sure what other people would do, but that helped me.
When you said Drew Brees, the whole time I was thinking Drew Barrymore.
No, Drew Brees was the quarterback for the Saints. But I didn't work with him. One of our members, she works with him. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you find that when you stretch celebrities that it's the first time that they've ever done it? Or do you think that do they usually have a stretch therapist kind of already?
Just in a few years ago, a lot of them had never been stretched before. But I think because it's so prominent now, there's all these stretch facilities opening up. More and more people are getting certified or having that tool to serve people with. And so I'm thinking now more and more have gotten stretched.
Do you think that mobility is just like a bigger buzzword, a bigger topic? Like, people are learning about it more recently?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about mobility 10 years ago, but I've heard it a lot more in the last 4 or 5 years.
I really do think with the advent of social media, that information is getting to the general public much quicker. And now people who are physical therapists, personal trainers can get that information out into a mainstream sort of, population.
Have you read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins?
No, I haven't. I have all of his books on my to read list.
It's an insane read. And one of the things that he talks about, actually, I don't want to spoil it, but he really loves mobility. It like pretty practically saved his life because he was doing so much with his body that like it basically broke down, and there wasn't, I guess, like enough optimized flow in his body. It was just like his body was just totally messed up because he was one of the few people.
Navy SEALs, right?
Yeah, but it got messed up from like ultra marathons, like 100-mile races.
Oh, I didn't know he did ultra marathon.
Yeah, I mean, he's like pretty well known for, he got big through ultra marathons.
Doing the hardest stuff ever.
Yeah, pretty much. And his body got to a point where it got so broken down that it was also like a heart thing that was happening, but it got to a point where like he couldn't walk for like a while. He like for 2 years he like couldn't exercise, he was like not sure why, and the doctors weren't sure why. And then he read The Supple Leopard.
Oh, Kelly Starrett. Yeah. Kelly Starrett's like a famous, I believe it's a physical therapist or a chiro. But he and I connect. We like talk every so often.
Is he the author?
He's the author, Kelly Starrett. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's great.
That is so
I
cool.
was trying to meet up. We've been trying to meet up for years. And I was in San Francisco earlier this year, and we were hoping to meet up, but we didn't get to. But yeah, we were in contact every so often. He's great. I love his stuff.
Yeah, I've heard about The Supple Leopard from so many people. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong because I read this book a while ago, but he had read it. He went through everything, 2 hours of mobility training every single night. It basically unwinded his body. Like he was, and now he's kind of back into a position where he's like doing things like hardcore things again.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really inspiring story. And that's actually the only reason that, because I had been recommended The Supple Leopard before, but after hearing that, I still haven't read it, but I'm even more interested in reading it.
Yeah, no, and if it's a big book, if you don't have time to read it, Kelly Starrett has a lot of great videos online. So his company is now called The Ready State. So he teaches everyone how to get their body primed and ready for life and movement. And I would recommend watching some of his stuff. I've taken some of his courses online too. They're great.
Is that why celebrities get stretched too? Because it's not just for athletes. Is mobility and
Oh my
stretching
God,
just like something that like people should just do in general?
I mean, I know, people want to hear about all the celebrity and the professional athletes that, I or other body workers work with, but the everyday people, like I love to get stretched. And I'm already naturally flexible, but I love it for maintenance and just, I work out a lot. So it helps with recovery. Most of our clients, when I was actively taking clients, most of them were just everyday people.
Right.
Yeah. Because you're sitting so much, you're not moving.
How often do you kind of recommend for someone to just do mobility training?
I would definitely recommend mobilizing every single day.
Right.
Like some people, you're sitting every day, right? So you would want to balance that out with movement, and mobility is very specific. It's like going through a range of motion through movement, whereas flexibility, you can test your flexibility by reaching for your toes.
Right.
There's no dynamic movement involved. So mobility is how well can you move in your ranges. Yeah. So with stretch therapy, you're kind of, when I was stretching all of my clients, I was thinking, how do I test their mobility and flexibility? And how can I improve upon that in the session? So I like to do assessments, like what we did with you, Alexi, before and afters. And we did your squat and I had you move around. And when you're walking, how does it feel?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
How does it feel that in Toronto, there's this person who's a well-known stretcher who's working with people like Kanye West, and then you stretch that person and they love your work? So how does it feel that a professional who works with other celebrities is validating the fact that you're a great stretch therapist?
It's incredible. It's really affirming, and it's I just have so much gratitude. And it's nice because it's validating, as you said, like what I'm doing. Because sometimes, like you guys work so hard, you don't quite know exactly what results you're going to be yielding.
Right.
And so when you hear it from your clients that you work with, it's fulfilling, right? And so when I hear, first of all, Harley Pasternak, he was like a personal training hero of mine when I was becoming a personal trainer, reach out to me and then is now like referring me to people. And like when I am in LA or if he's in Toronto, we'll try to connect and I'll try to stretch him. I'm like, I'm offering you a free stretch just because I'm so grateful. It inspires me and motivates me to keep going.
For me, if I want to become like, say, a certified stretch therapist, what are some like things I should look out for, right? I want to learn from the lessons you've kind of learned.
That's a really good question. Okay, so some of the struggles in the beginning, and I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable. You're young, you're in your 20s, and I have a personal training background and an athletic background, so I'm like really intense, right? And as I got into stretch therapy, now I know it's like a fluid motion, it's like a dance, but I was just like intense, go hard. And so I would, and I'm not proud of this, but that's why I'm cautioning you all if you want to become one. I would go too hard and I would go out of my scope. So as a stretch therapist, really understand what your job is and work with other experts in their field. So, as a stretch therapist, your job is not to diagnose. Your job is not to try and fix, issues they have with fibromyalgia. Like all of the medical stuff, that's not your lane. And in the beginning, because I was like, oh, I need to be good at everything, I would try and quickly research and then, stretch them based on my research. And luckily, I never injured or hurt anyone.
Right.
But now that I'm older and wiser, and when we teach our courses, always very careful about staying in your lane and connect with physical therapists, chiros, osteos, and work closely with them. And just know that all your job is to stretch, talk to their doctor if there's any red flags or red lights or green lights you should know about.
Right.
Listen to them because that's not your job. You're not a medical professional. So I would say stick to your lane, because when I started putting out content, and like even to this day, I'm a lot more careful, but there are people who are still like, hey, like, be careful about what you put out there. That's not cool. So you just have to be very clear about what your intentions are and what your actual area of expertise is.
Right.
What's an example of you working with another staff in the medical field to then help the client? So like you mentioned, like when you were working with Russell, there's like more than one person who's actually like helping with the recovery.
Yeah, that was awesome. Working with a full performance recovery team. So when I was working with Russell Wilson, he literally had one person for everything. So, a lot of people will get a body worker who can massage and do acupuncture and do stretch therapy. He wanted someone who's very good at just stretch therapy, someone very good at massage.
Right.
And I thought that was awesome. So all I had to focus on was stretch.
Right.
And we had our director of performance. She was the physical therapist, and she would kind of oversee everything. So it was great to have someone who had the expertise kind of say, okay, this is what I want you to focus on. And so we all knew our parts, and you had to be very super laser focused about what you're supposed to do so that the whole machinery worked together and efficiently. So that was awesome. Not that everyone can afford a full-fledged performance team,
full team.
but you can still connect and communicate your, let's say, chiropractor with your stretch therapist. And it's just a matter of sending an email.
Right. Gotcha.
It's simpler than you think.
I know you mentioned that everybody should be doing some form of mobility, and it's probably unnecessary because you're not a professional athlete that has to go out every week and get like tackled. But if you did have access to a 9-person performance team for your lifestyle, would you take it, or would it be like overkill?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't think you need 9 people, but I think it would be pretty. I would love a stretch therapist, like a body worker. I'm happy. I don't need like a stretch therapist, an acupuncture specialist, but if I had a body worker that was good in all those areas, that would be awesome. I would love to have. I think recovery is really important to get stretched, because I stretch myself all the time, and I get stretched by my team and like our members. But I would love to have something because I work out so much, right? And I'm sitting a lot when I'm doing all the computer work. So I would love someone to help me just combat that. And it feels great too. You just lie there and just,
feel like you're
amazing.
on a cloud.
Yeah. And it's like relaxing, right?
Right.
It's a moment out of your day where you feel like it's still productive, but you can relax.
You mentioned that you stretched Drake, and I know that there's a lot of videos of him a couple of years ago when he was first starting to play basketball like a little more seriously. Like I remember a couple of years ago there was videos, and he wasn't that good. He was playing pickup games with other celebrities, and he wasn't that good. And then recently a video came out, and he's not bad, and you could tell he's been practicing a lot because he has like a court in his house.
Yeah, I think that helped, having like a state-of-the-art court in your home.
And all his boys are just playing with him.
Yeah, I even think like Lethal Shooter helped him out with a shot. Like there's like people he's actively working on his game. So
great.
When you stretched him, was it for his music when he's performing, or was it also because he's like playing a lot of basketball?
Okay, so when I stretched Drake, his need was for a mixture of things. So yes, he performs on stage, and so it's like 2 hours of jumping around, squatting, yelling, using your body. And so that's a lot on the body. So he would need some stretches to strength or lengthen out.
Right.
But also because he travels so much, and this is what happens with a lot of celebrities who are on the road, is they're sitting a lot in tour buses, in planes. Even if it's a fancy jet, you're still sitting, and you're sleeping in different hotel beds. Even though they're like the best hotel beds in the world, your body hasn't gotten used to it and adapted. And then the time change. So a lot of it was also to help with just loosening up his body and getting it right, and to help get rid of all the tension he was feeling.
Do people have different reactions to being stretched? Like when you stretched Alexi, he was like very specific, like, wow, like that was amazing. Like, so for someone like Drake, like what did he say about being stretched? Like,
you know what? Actually, most of the reactions are pretty similar, pretty universal. It's like, oh my God, wow. Like I mean, especially if they have the body awareness to understand the difference they're feeling. That's why it's always important to get them to test and retest.
Right.
It's usually like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, and often I've heard people say, man, getting a stretch is like, it actually feels better than getting a massage, just the results you get.
oh yeah.
And I'm not knocking on massage. I love getting a massage. I think both are great, but some of the feedback has been like that.
Yeah.
You're way more like limber after. Like you can tell like a noticeable difference in your range of motion. That's okay. What happens when you stretch every single day, the same thing multiple times? Is it that your flexibility increases, or do you get that feeling of limberness all the time?
It depends on the person and also their objective and their goals. So for example, when I would stretch Russell Wilson almost every day, it's a combination of things. A lot of it was for recovery for him because he was training almost every single day. And it was preventative for him because he didn't want to get injured, which is really important in the world of professional athleticism or professional sports. So feeling limber, yeah, that would be one of the biggest results. But injury prevention, I think, is the biggest thing. And so to answer your question, like, again, it depends on the person. I don't think you need to get stretched by someone every single day. There's a lot you can do on your own.
Right.
So I would say for the everyday person who can't afford a stretch therapist every day is, I think even once a week, if you can, like 2 times a week, 3 times a week, depending on how active you are, how much you work out, how much you sit. If you're sitting a lot, getting stretched once a week is great, but I would encourage you to start strength training and doing mobility training.
Right.
Because getting stretched, a lot of it is passive. If you're not activating your muscles in your body, I would urge you to make that a priority. The stretch is important, but movement first. So controlling your own movement, I would recommend.
Gotcha. This next question I kind of have is kind of off topic, not really, but kind of a little bit off topic. But what would you consider, like, if I was looking for a stretch therapist, right? How can I distinguish what a good stretch therapist is and what isn't? Who's not a good stretch therapist? Like before, you said for stretch therapists they shouldn't diagnose, right? That could be one factor. But what am I looking for if I want to work with a stretch therapist?
That is a good question. First thing that comes to mind is touch. So if they have a great sense of the body, is it intuitive? Can they feel where your edges are? Because you don't want someone who blows past your range of motion, your limits.
Right.
That's not great. And like I said, I used to do that in the beginning.
Right.
And I learned over time. So someone who doesn't blow past your ranges, but also isn't afraid to get to your edges.
Right.
So if you're not even feeling anything, obviously that's a sign. But that happens, someone who understands the body. So I personally, I've worked with a lot of massage therapists who are fantastic, but the ones I really resonate with me personally, because I'm an athlete, is those who exercise, who know how to move their body, who have body awareness of their own bodies.
Right.
Because a lot of people can read a textbook and understand the anatomy.
Right.
But unless they experience movement for themselves, it's a different approach. They look at the session, differently.
Right.
So I would kind of take a look at, is this stretch therapist active? Does it seem like they know what they're talking about?
Right.
And also, can they stretch me in a way where I feel it and it doesn't hurt?
Right.
So stretching shouldn't hurt.
Right.
That's the number one thing. I used to think like, yeah, the more pain, the better. Like no pain, no gain. Like
Right.
at the gym. It's like, I was so bro, you know? But now I'm like, no, it shouldn't be painful. You shouldn't be tensing up. So
Right,
if you're
okay.
feeling like I'm tensing up and you can't relax, then
I
it might
see,
be
I
a sign
see.
that they need to kind of back off
back
a little
up.
bit.
I had a question about Will Smith. It was like, this is a question just kind of off topic. He's usually like a pretty funny guy. And I was just wondering if when you were stretching him, if he ever made any jokes.
Actually, when I stretched him for 2 hours. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was like private, just he and I in the room. And he actually like passed out for 2 hours while I stretched him. Yeah.
Wait, can you-
It's great.
Can you actually be asleep while you're
Like you can chill and
you're
relax
like in that
and
half state of like
Yeah.
because it's actually like such a relaxing experience.
yeah. There were moments where like he like actually fell asleep.
That happens in hot yoga a lot, I think.
Yeah. And like, you know, when you get massage, sometimes you pass out, right? So he was just being a normal human being, like getting stretched. And he made a joke about, the other day I was playing basketball and I have no business playing basketball anymore. My knees like hurt all the time. And so that was part of addressing like what were some of his issues. At that time, he was feeling a lot of tightness and a little bit of pain in the low back and his knees. And so we just like tested his squat. He's like, oh yeah, when I squat, like that hurts my knee and my back is, restricting the movement. There are, a number of things at play. But after, I think did he make a joke? He might have joked about, he asked me like, what's your background? I get that a lot. Like, do people get,
Yeah.
do you get that a lot,
they think I'm
Alexi?
like Spanish.
Yeah.
Like Mexican.
Yeah.
And
Because your last name's
De La
Cuesta.
Cuesta.
Cuesta, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I'm Filipino.
Yeah. So people often, especially if they're not from Toronto, they're not sure what I am. They'll be like, are you Vietnamese, Thai,
Right.
Mongolian, Hawaiian? I get a lot of it. So he's like, what's your background? And I was like, guess. And then he's like, Vietnamese. I said, nope. And he's like, I think he said like Thai or Malaysian. I'll get that a
Right,
lot. And then finally the third one, he's like, Philippines? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, why didn't I guess that? Like, I knew that, right? But actually, after the stretch, I was like, how do you feel? We like retested his squat. He's like, after the stretch, he literally like jumped up and he's like, oh, see this morning that hurt. He's like, I don't feel that anymore. And then we tested his squat and he went down lower and he's like, that doesn't bother my knee. So that was really cool. And then after he gave me a big hug and he said in my ear, and I've told the story a million times, he's like, you are fantastic at what you do. Don't stop. Keep going. And I was like, okay, Mr. Smith, I won't let you down. I like really felt like a call to action. It was like a
Right.
movie moment for me. It was like, Gandalf the Grey, like
He's cinematic in real life too. Like, it's just,
yeah, he knew what he was doing. He empowered me, so I'm grateful for that. He knows his influence.
Right.
So that was great, and we like had shared a laugh, and then that moment was important to me. And hopefully, in his eyes, I keep going. Obviously, I do this for me, but just to get that validation from a hero of yours, because he was a childhood hero of mine.
Right.
Has always been a special, unique moment.
Did you watch all the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when you were younger?
Oh my God, totally.
So you watched
100%.
the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then one day you stretched Will Smith. That is so cool.
Yeah, I watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when it was first aired. You guys are just watching it as
On
repeats.
Netflix?
I was watching it like first thing on air, and I've watched it several times over, and it shaped my humor, how I joke. Like, I don't know if you guys read Will Smith's book, but it's fantastic. You have to read it.
Right.
I loved it.
Wow. Did you have any?
No, you go ahead.
I was wondering, who would, I know you're not taking clients one-on-one right now, but like who would you love to stretch if you had the opportunity? If they reached out, you'd be like, yeah, I'll stretch you.
Oh God, if any like professional athlete or celebrity that I've always kind of looked up to, I would say yes in a heartbeat. But there's some that I've always wanted to stretch The Rock because I feel, first of all, he's awesome.
Right.
And I feel like he would really benefit from it and he would like it a lot. And I feel like I could really help him because he trains so hard, you
Right.
know? And Serena and Venus Williams, I would love to. More female athletes I would like to get involved with. But just like, I love movies and I love pop culture. So, you know, like Kevin Hart, he works out a ton.
And
I
he
would
has
like to.
a sensitive back too.
Yeah, because he runs a lot.
Right.
He's always doing those Nike marathons and things like that. Honestly, there's a whole list. Like I love Reese Witherspoon, like Olivia Munn, like really anyone who would find it valuable, and I think they would. Like I love Ariana Grande, Mariah Carey, you know.
Well, you mentioned all those people, and it feels like, I mean, you're gonna end up stretching those people. I feel
I
right,
sure hope so.
and just given like kind of like the track record you have with people you stretch, and also, I feel like, with your kind of journey, right, that anything that you wanted, you were manifested that outcome, right? And I feel like, and what you told us earlier today is that manifestation, or the power of manifestation, is something you truly, truly believe in, right? I would love to hear more about that, because I know a lot of people are always practicing or preaching about manifestation, and I always had this like skepticism around it, right? But I feel that hearing your story, where you would always something that you want, it's gonna come by eventually, and it's kind of proof is in the pudding right here with the story you have. So
Yeah.
could you kind of talk more about, you know, manifestation and kind of your experience with that, right?
I would love to. Here's my thing about manifestation. It's not, I think some people get confused with just like when you manifest, they think that you're supposed to just put it out in the universe as a thought and then just let
Right.
things come to you. But you still have to make little movements that lead you towards that goal. The best analogy I can come up with is like, in the tech world, you know, web developers, they have to set up their environment, right? In order for the code to thrive.
Right.
I know it's really nerdy, but you still need to set up your environment for these opportunities to come your way. You know, you want to also create an environment where abundant opportunities can come your way. And I grew up thinking with a very like lack of abundance mindset. You know,
Right.
when you come from immigrant parents, you know, they're always concerned about money. And so they give you that
Right.
fear of money as well. And so
Right.
you're like tightening your purse strings. But there's so much to be said about being generous, not just with the money, like giving back and contributing is important, but also with your time and who you are as a person. So when I make decisions that lead towards the end result I want, let's say, you know, when I was a kid, I always wanted to work with pro athletes. So every decision I made is like, okay, how can I come at this? How can I reach out to people in like a loving, compassionate way? Right. So for me, when I build these relationships, I'm in it for the long game. I don't think short game, transactional, that's it. I think, how can I make an impact in this person's life that's beneficial, you know, and then also leave room for any type of reciprocation.
Right.
Right. So I don't expect anything. But I think combining, you know, setting my mind to what I want, doing the hard work and the little things to get me there and create that space, and also coming at it with a place from keeping it heart-centered, you know? And like, you guys are such good guys. And like, that's why I think you guys can be really successful. Although I feel like you've found a level of success now at your age. It's really impressive. But because you guys actually care, like you doing all this for me, that's huge. Like, it just reminds me of the thing, like, and I'm getting emotional. 'Cause it reminds me of the little things I would do to go above and beyond. And like, please know it doesn't go unnoticed.
Right.
Okay. So if you just keep following that energy, you guys are good people. Don't, you know, take advantage of anyone. I don't think you guys will do that. And then just bring people along the way, like be the leader and say, hey, like, let me uplift you. Let me help you out. I grew up thinking I had to be competitive, especially with other women or other girls. But now I find strength in like empowering other women. And now like we're building this amazing stretch therapy army where we're just going to like do our best to spread the love and spread stretch. So I think it's all those combined. It's not just thinking this is going to happen for me. It's like, okay, how can I do my part in order for the universe to maybe like alkalize this energy that I'm putting out there?
Like building goodwill.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I know what you mean.
Thank you. Definitely, you've I don't know how to explain it, but like you've approached life from a like giving perspective. And when we make a lot of content, one of the things that we've learned a lot is that like the people who give the most value are the ones that get the most views. And it's just a universal truth, I guess, of like what you give, you kind of receive. So I appreciate that, because we're definitely trying to like just understand how valuable we can be in somebody's life or business by like affecting them through great video. You know, if we can help lift people up through like great content, like that's like, I feel like a frustration that a lot of people feel is like, I know I could help a lot of people if I just fix my content. And when we made that video where I didn't even have you like with your face in the video, and when you like did a voiceover and then we like put it together and you posted it and it got a bunch of views. I know that like I know for a fact there's someone somewhere who watches some of the content that we make through our clients and is like, it changes their life. I have to believe it. Otherwise, like I like don't have the purpose in my to like keep going. Cause like some of the people that we work with definitely have content that like has the potential to change people's lives if someone takes it seriously. So it's really cool to see sometimes when you have like 8 million views on a video or like 100,000 views on a video that like someone out there definitely benefited from us being able to empower that person to make that content. So, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I think it's so wonderful that you guys just have this natural ability to just want to do good for other people, yourselves, of course, but you're not, the way you're acting, it's not like you're expecting anything in return. You know that putting in this work is going to yield results. And I think, you know, if we want to give advice to anyone, that's important to not be expecting anything.
Right.
You know, when I give free stretches, I think, you know what? I'm just going to build a relationship here. And if it goes somewhere, that's great. If not, I'm not going to get upset, you know, or feel a sense of entitlement.
Right. And I feel like people, especially like, I mean, a lot of people our age, or just with the rise of like the surge of social media, it kind of made people always chase a shiny object.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out within like maybe a month, they just kind of go on to the next shiny object. I mean, we fell victim quite a few times with stuff like that, where we're like, oh my God, this is the new thing, right? We should try this. But I mean, a lot of people just don't know that if you put in the work, it'll eventually pay off, right? If we look back at ourselves 2 years ago when we first started this business, I mean, it's night and day.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's impressive
different.
what you guys have created in such a short time. It's really cool.
Yeah, there was like, you know, that study that everyone refers back to, that one where there's kids and like the measure of the predictability of their success. This was like a study that was done in like the 70s, and they were just trying to find out, could we predict if these kids were going to be successful or not based off of if they took the candy that was in front of them, or if they do you remember that? People like reference it all the time. So it turns out like they revisited that study. This was told to me by a different client, but essentially it wasn't that the ability to postpone
gratification.
Yeah, the gratification and like the pleasure of eating the candy, the ability to postpone that, knowing that more candy will come in the future, wasn't the number one indicator of whether that kid would be successful. It was actually more leaning towards if the kid was told that they were going to get more candy and then they got more candy by waiting, it built a trust in the kid that things work the way that they should. Like the things work the way they should. Meaning, if I put in the work, or if I mean to do something, the end result is that I will inevitably achieve it. But what they did was they told kids that there would be more candy, and then they broke the promise. And they found that kids that came from homes where like a lot of expectations were promised and broken were more likely to not believe that if they were to put some work in, that they would inevitably get to the success. Meaning a lot of us now as adults are like working towards something, but if we don't see results in like a year, 2 years, some people a week, then it's like, I can't do it. It's like they just lose interest in it. But some people know that they can dedicate their lives to something, and what will come, and eventually good things do come. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at this for 10 years now.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you decided to just do this last year and then everything just worked out for you. Like you actually put in a decade of work, you know? So very interesting.
Yeah.
And for you to say you've been doing this for 10 years, I know like you mentioned you came from a traditional Filipino background, immigrant parents, and you know like some of the, I guess, values that, you know, I've experienced this too, where they put out where it's like you got to follow a certain path, you know, go to university, get a 9-to-5 corporate job that pays, you know, somewhat well.
Or it was like be a doctor or a lawyer.
Right. And
Those
so
were the two options.
Right. Those were the two options. And so what kind of like, I guess, what was the moment where for you it was like a mindset switch? Because we've been conditioned for me like 24 years, right? For you, how many years you've been conditioned for until you kind of made that switch where you really want to chase what you truly believe in, your true passion, right? And what kind of advice could you give to people who are kind of still in that state?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was in college and university. It just became very clear to me, like I was the worst student. Like, and I hope my parents never listen to this, but like I like rarely went to class. Like I was just not interested.
Right.
And I found myself doing the things I really wanted to do, which was play volleyball all the time, socialize. Like I'm a social butterfly. I love being energized by other people and connecting deeply with them. And being out in the city and exploring. I was just such an explorative child, and I love adventure and just like working out. Those are the things I would do. And so it became very clear, you know, I wasn't going to class. I was getting like just decent enough grades to skirt by. Okay. And like, I've never really said that publicly because people always assumed I was like a star student because up until college I was.
Right.
But when I was in college, there's something switched in my brain where I was like, it isn't all about academics. There's so much more to the world.
Right.
And so I wanted to explore more, and it shifted my focus. And I wasn't living at home anymore, so I had all this like freedom to explore. And it was then when I wasn't like dying to get the highest grades in, you know, biochem or like physical, you know, chemistry,
Right.
that I was like, I don't think I want to be a doctor. You know, for a long time I felt bad. I thought I wasn't smart enough or good enough. Now I know it's because I was listening to my intuition. It's like, this isn't your path.
Right.
Like follow what you like to do. And even at the resistance of my parents, I would follow what I did, which is like socialize, make connections. I became a really good master connector and like networker.
Right.
And hearing people's stories about things they love, like other personal trainers, the athletes, the varsity athletes, the athletic therapists. I would just talk to them and hear their story, and it inspired me. And so after college, I was a server. I still think everyone should serve for at least a year in their life because you have to put up with a lot of shit, but you learn how to sell and like kind of overcome it and just like build a backbone. And then you can't be entitled when you're serving people.
Right.
And then through serving, I met someone, like I was serving a table, and they were like, Sarah, like, you graduated from college. Like, what do you want? We were just having conversation. Like, what do you want to do? I was like, I actually want to work in fitness. And they're like, oh, it just so happens we work for Good Life Fitness, which is like the big chain block gym in Canada, for people who don't know. And they're like, we can get you an interview if you're interested with our manager. And so I had an interview to be a salesperson, like a membership salesperson. And I didn't get the job. But then 3 weeks later, the guy that got the job over me quit. I guess he just felt like it wasn't for him anymore. And then they called me. For a reason, huh? They have for a reason. They called me and said, we'd like to offer you a job. And I killed it. I killed it in sales. And I was not a naturally good salesperson. When it came to the ask, I'm like, I would always shy away, like, okay, well, this is how much it costs, right? But I was like determined to get better at it. And I would read books and blah, blah, blah. And eventually I became the top salesperson in my club. And then eventually it's like, okay, I want to switch to personal training. So I switched to the personal training department, became the best-selling personal trainer in my club. And I was like, okay, it's like now I have this cool skill set, sales, which I didn't think I would ever get because I was so shy and scared.
Right.
And then I left and started my own business and used those skills, which I still use today. Sales and everything I learned as a server has helped me, really push to where I am now. So don't knock some of those jobs you had when you were younger. I also, how you guys said that you worked in student painting? Yeah. I did that for like 2 days. I would knock on people's doors and ask them if they wanted their exteriors painted. And I was like, this is horseshit. And I quit.
I did that for 3 years.
3 years. Oh, good for you, man. I was like, I hate this.
I just did it for 2 summers.
Yeah, I remember how nervous I was on the first one, and then how not nervous I was like.
Oh, that's amazing.
Every other time that I would do it, like a year after. Once you're like doing it for a while, you do not care. Like, that's why that's actually how I got my first big corporate client was Cinnaholic. I just went straight to the franchise. Was like, hey, are you the owner? I have a presentation for you.
Yeah, that's so great.
And then we ended up working for like a year, and the rest is history.
It's a great way to overcome your fear of rejection. Mm-hmm. Like I still have that now. But, if you keep getting your reps in and flexing that muscle, it becomes way easier, right?
Mm-hmm. Very true.
I wanted to ask you, for someone who's kind of listening or just watching your content, and they're stuck in that mindset of, I want to chase my dreams, but I can't. I'm just stuck, right? Mm-hmm. What would you tell them?
I love that question because there are moments when I still feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I had that recently, like a month and a half ago, where I was like, I don't know if I'm living my purpose. I don't know if I'm living the life I'm supposed to. Mm. So yeah, of course, tools are important, like meditation. If you can afford it, or if you have the opportunity, therapy has helped me tremendously. But I think really learning who you are. There's so many free worksheets and workbooks out there. This is what I did. I followed this free Tony Robbins thing about, understanding your personal power.
I remember those are older.
They're older. Yeah. They used to be like cassette tapes. Yeah. And like,
I've listened to those.
Yeah. And then, so I would do the worksheets, I would listen, and I would journal a lot about, okay, what do I really want in life? There's some great like templates out there that you can use to, and the first time you do it, you're like, I don't know if I really believe what I'm writing, but you keep going. The second time, eventually like the 10th time, I was like, okay, some of this actually happened. This is kind of cool. So I'm going to keep doing this. And sometimes it's like a labor. It's like, I don't want to fill this entire workbook out.
Right.
You don't have to do the whole thing, but eventually you start to figure out where are the areas you need to focus on. So I think one of the biggest thing that helped me was writing out all of the great wins you had. Like, sorry, not even just great, small and large wins in the last 3 months. So I'll do this twice a year. So the last 6 months, what were some of the wins? And you forget them, even like the little ones. Like, oh, the fact that we rented this Airbnb, that's a huge thing, right?
Right.
Like, write that shit down.
Take for granted like that.
Yeah, don't take it for granted. Like, you couldn't do that maybe 2 years ago, right?
Right.
And then going over all of your wins, who are the great people you met? Who did you work with? Who do you want to work with now? And like, look back. Sometimes I look back like, oh shit, I forgot that I wrote this person down and like I worked with this person, Right. Doing those worksheets and understanding who you are as a person. What are your goals? What are your values? This is an exercise I really enjoyed, was what are my core values? 3 of them. And the number 1, I told you guys, freedom. And I didn't know that could be a core value.
Right.
And then I started to really look at my patterns, look at my life. And I was like, oh, if my core value of freedom is compromised, I'm not happy. So I realized freedom is my number 1 core value. Everything I do is so that I could have freedom, ultimate freedom. Okay. And then there's other things like humor, entertainment, music, because I love to sing, like all of these values, deep connections with people, travel, So writing out what you love to do and trying to make decisions that kind of lead you into that path.
Right.
Not everyone can travel. I couldn't travel for a long time. I'm like, okay, so I want to be able to travel. What do I need? What are the little steps I need in order to get there that align with my goal and who I am as a person? Okay, this person says I need to do all of this digital marketing in this way with webinars. Okay, it doesn't really sit right with me. Let me try it. Okay, it didn't work. I'm going to try a different avenue. But like, as you said, never giving up.
Right.
But also understanding what are you capable of. If that person does webinars, it didn't work for me, but actually like doing Instagram worked for me. So just playing around.
Right.
But again, like tuning in with who you are. People are going to tell you what to do. I'm sure you guys get it all the time. You guys should do this. You guys should do that. And I used to reject that and like resist it a lot when people would say the words, you should do this, especially if they're not even in your industry. They don't even know what they're talking about, right? But now I just like, okay, cool. Like, I have my processes,
Right.
but I appreciate, just understanding what your vision is. Who are you going to trust? Like you have your mentors. Like mentors are really important for me. They've been very vocal in my life and my successes. And I take everything they say with a grain of salt. Okay, like this is great information, but does it align with who I am? And that takes years to really figure out who you are.
Right.
I literally, as you're saying that, I realized it's not that I haven't thought about that. I have wanted to know who I am. It's difficult when you hear so many things, so many advices, or like,
Especially from just social media, there's so many
oh my gosh.
advices.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what's.
Like I'm just scrolling through the next guy who's talking about mindset.
And then there's a guy who's talking about something else, and now I don't
Just
even
conflicted.
know if it's me that believes it, or if I just heard it somewhere. Like I literally don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like
Oh, it's so true. That's why for me, it was like the therapy and then journaling and like, with those prompts and then setting my boundaries, like understanding what you don't want. So write out what another great exercise was like what I don't want to do. Like, okay, by December, I don't want to be stretching people anymore, right? But I want to make this amount of money. Okay, how do I get there? Okay, I don't want to be responding to emails anymore. Like I wrote out all the things I didn't want to do and then slowly ticked away at them. And what are the things I actually want to focus on and only choose like 3 things. And then I wrote the 3 things I really want to work on. So it's going to be a journey, but getting there when you have a little bit more understanding of who you are will get you there much faster.
Path's a lot clearer.
yeah, because as you're saying, like freedom is my number one priority. In my head, I'm thinking, if freedom was my number one priority, would I go do this? And then I'm like, no, that sounds really intense. I don't know. Could I make, like, I was just thinking like, could I make freedom my number one priority? I don't know. Like, I feel like I don't know myself enough to even to make that decision.
Yeah.
But it's coming with time.
Yeah.
I could tell I'm like, I know myself more than I did 5 years ago. But as you're saying this, I'm realizing, it does take a long time to figure this out.
I didn't realize my core value is freedom until I was 33. I started doing more of that work at 30.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be a journey. You might discover it sooner, but it does take time because you're so young still. You're still forming your
Still
mindset,
developing.
your outlook, perspective. You're still gaining experience. So you're basing everything off the limited amount of experience you've had so far. So just be patient and trust yourself.
Well, I guess final question for you is what's the goal for Sarah this year? And can you talk a little more about the program and the certification program you have?
Well, for Sarah, this year has been great. So this year is the first year I actually got to practice my nomadic lifestyle. Now, this is something I don't know why, but as a kid, I was like, I want to be a nomad. Every time I love movies. So when I watch movies or read books or hear stories of people just, being a nomad and traveling and adventuring, I was like, that resonates with me. I don't know why, but one day I'm going to be a nomad. But I didn't want to be a broke ass nomad. I didn't want to be in my 20s working at cruise ships and at hostels. I was like, I want to create something I'm proud of first and design my life to fit in that career or whatever I create for myself, and then be able to travel with my work.
Right.
And I don't even want to call it work because, this is kind of like a labor of love. This is what I'm doing for a living and I enjoy it. I get to connect with people. And stretch and utilize mobility and movement because that brings me joy. And so becoming a nomad was a dream come true. And this year I finally get to live it in the way I want. You know, I get to be in Tulum and meet the love of my life. You know, I get to go to Morocco on a whim, which is how I eventually met you guys. You know, I got to go to I was invited to a few masterminds in like California. That was awesome. I got to live in LA and San Diego, which, you know, I love California, and surf and play volleyball some more. And, you know, now I'm going to go to Asia next year, and we're going to bring the performance stretch system, my course, to South Korea. You know, I was in the Middle East, and we're figuring out how can we bring it there.
Wow.
So all of it is just all tying together with the theme of my life, right? So this year, other than being a nomad and practice minimalism, because I never felt like materialism was really me.
Right.
And so now it feels good to just like shed all my clothes. You know, I'm living out of a suitcase, but I don't mind. Like learning how to not be attached to things have been helpful for my mental health as well. And the rest of the year, I'm going to continue with surrendering. So most of my life, like you guys, I was hustle, hustle, go, 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 go.
Right.
Now I've set up my environment where I feel like, okay, now that I've set this up, now I can use my manifestation power to allow things to come to me. Instead of me being that person at a networking event, like talking to every single person, getting their name, like la la la. Now on Sunday I did this event, and I still had that inkling to go up to everyone, all the big names. I was like, you know what, Sarah? Let's just sit and see who comes to you. And I had a number of people come up to me and go like, hey, Sarah, I haven't seen you in 10 years. Oh my God, your talk was amazing. Like some influencers who were bigger than me a few years ago that now just through numbers and followers I've surpassed. And now they're coming to me. So it was really cool to just be now and to let things come my way. So that's what I'm practicing the rest of this year is surrendering and still doing the hard work, but not being like
tied to it.
You know, not being tied to the results.
Right.
And not overworking.
Right.
That's insane. You're blowing my mind right now. This is this is like the kind of like the magical dream that I see somewhere in the future. And then it's funny to hear that you had a really similar upbringing as us. You started working on your craft around the same time. And then all of a sudden you're in this position that we hope to one day be in. It's very just like, it's very inspiring, honestly. So.
But I mean, you guys are in a really great, unique position where you guys have become friends and you guys get to share this experience together.
Right.
I didn't really have anyone to share this with.
Yeah, you did this all kind of alone.
It was like all solo, and that's cool. But like, there's power in numbers. Like you guys are going to be able to lift each other up when you need to. I think I've always wanted something like that, you know. And I did have a COO for a little bit of time, and we were that for each other, and it was so helpful. She was incredible, and she still is. We're still good friends now, but our paths kind of diverged. Right. And now I'm doing a lot of it on my own again, but I do miss, you know, having that person where we can like, you know, sometimes it helps to like vent, you know, and just rant. I love a good rant session. It's very healing for me, right? So it's nice that you guys can have that with each other. So like really treasure it and value it, because it's going to help you guys stay motivated.
I appreciate that. Tell me about the program.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, the performance stretch system. So the system is a assisted floor-based stretching program that I created out of necessity, really. It was like a lot of the stretching protocols are done on tables or massage tables. But I was like, I just need the freedom to move around my client. And like my clients were huge. They were more comfortable on the ground, right? When on the massage table, they felt restricted. So I had so much more play, and I can get over them. I'm small. So like to get over my weight over them was really beneficial to have them on the floor. So I created it, and my mentors were just like, you need to like put this together as a program. And I was like, oh my God, no one's going to come. Like, who's even going to come? I was the imposter syndrome. And they were just like, and I had a really supportive team at the time too. And they were like, Sarah, just put something out. Like it took me 2 years. My mentor planted the seed. It took me 2 years to like get the courage to put something out. And I don't know, I put something together, and I didn't take it lightly. I worked on it for like a year with Cairo, you know, with a lot of people who helped me really develop the program for efficiency, effectiveness, and like safety. And we created this program, and I don't know, I put it out there, and then thanks to social media,
Right.
we had people sign up. And then
Right.
honestly, the pandemic was a blessing in disguise. It forced me to put it online, and then we
Right.
had all these online, like a whole world of people
Right.
started to take the course. So that's what I'm saying. Like if you just follow your passion or what you want to do, and it may lead you to a road that you never thought possible.
And how
But
many,
I stopped talking about the course. So the course, I keep thinking of talking abstractly. Okay, the course, guys. I looked at you. I was like, oh yeah, you asked me a question. I didn't answer. Okay, so if you want to become a performance stretch therapist where you are actively stretching another human body,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be professional athletes, it can be everyday people, and you want to help them improve their mobility, reduce pain, prevent injuries, this is, I don't know, I'm pretty biased, but this is a system that I've had a lot of results with, and all of our members, we have over 500 members all over the world, have found results with their clients. So come take the course. We do them in person all over North America, and we are expanding. But if you want to do it out of the comfort of your home, we also have the online version where you have 6 months to complete it. It's go at your own pace. And then you finish with a Zoom exam with one of our instructors.
oh, wow.
Yeah. But come in person because it's fun. We would tell jokes. You can learn a little bit better because, you know, you're in person and you're connecting with our community. Our community is amazing. Like our members are just salt of the earth people.
Right.
So we would love to have you come.
Awesome. Well, it's a great talk. I mean, I guess one last thing is you want to give shout out to anyone or you want to plug something in.
Thank you.
Shout out The Rock.
Yes,
wanna
shout
work
out
with
to
you.
The Rock. I love all your work. Him and Kevin Hart, so funny. To both of them.
Yeah, they're like they
For
come
bringing
together.
joy
Like a
into our
duo.
lives. I would really like to shout out Kelly Slater. So Kelly Slater, I stretched him just one time, but he's just such a good guy. First of all, he's the GOAT in surfing. If you don't know him, watch his stuff. Watch this documentary called Next Generation. It's fantastic. And we connected over social media. I stretched him once. And even though our paths haven't been able to cross again, like physically, because we're never in the same spot, he always supports me. He loved the stretch that I gave him. And like if I tag him in something, he'll repost. And if he sees me on his live, he'll give me a shout out. So I just wanted to let him know I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Shout out to Kelly Slater.
Yeah, I was gonna say shout out Kelly.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and my instructing team. My instructing team's awesome. Thank you, ladies and guys. You guys are amazing.